If you have a true, strange, or scary story you'd like to see on the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to send it my way. And of course, thank you. I believe I experienced my first glitch in the Matrix last week, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. It's one thing to hear about these stories online. They're fascinating, sure, but it's a whole other feeling when it happens to you. Ironically, I've been falling asleep to your glitch videos almost every night. They've always been entertaining and oddly comforting, like bedtime stories for adults, who secretly wonder if reality isn't as solid as it seems. I never expected to become part of one myself. It started off like any other day, except I was running late. Really late. My shift at work was about to start, and I remember checking the clock as I rushed out the door. It was 3:10. The drive to my job is 40 minutes on a good day. There's no way to cut that down significantly. I have to go through another town to get there, and it's not like some shortcut would magically make a difference. But I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I was just focused on getting to work without being even later than I already was. The drive started normally enough. I remember getting to the first stoplight and feeling frustrated because, of course, it turned red just as I approached. I glanced at the clock again and it was 3:15. The seconds seemed to stretch out as I sat there, and for some reason I couldn't shake this strange feeling. Like the air around me was heavy or thick. I didn't think much of it in the moment, though. Then, as I was waiting for the light to change, I blinked. Or at least it felt like a blink. But when I opened my eyes, I wasn't at the light anymore. I was pulling into the parking lot at work. The car was moving, my hands were on the wheel, but I had absolutely no memory of the drive between the stoplight and my workplace. I froze for a second, confused. My first thought was to check the clock. It was 3:25. I'll never forget that time because it hit me like a ton of bricks. How had I gotten there in 15 minutes? The math didn't add up. Even if I somehow sped the entire way, which isn't possible because my car has a built-in speed warning system, I wouldn't have made it in under 40 minutes. I just sat there in the parking lot staring at the dashboard clock, hoping it would somehow change and make sense. It didn't. I turned off the car and checked my phone, thinking maybe it was glitching. No, same time, 3:25. For the next 30 minutes, I stayed in my car trying to process what had just happened. I wasn't panicking exactly, but there was this creeping sense of unease that would not go away. I tried to retrace my steps, or rather my drive. I clearly remembered leaving my house at 3:10. I even checked the timestamp of a call I made to my mom right before I left. It was logged at 3:05, so I know my memory wasn't playing tricks on me. And then there was the drive itself. It wasn't like I'd been lost in thought or daydreaming. I was fully alert when I got to the stoplight. What I can't explain is how I got from there to work in what felt like the blink of an eye. It wasn't just missing time, it was missing space. It felt like the universe had fast-forwarded me to my destination. Maybe it doesn't seem all that crazy, but it didn't feel right. The more I thought about it, the stranger it seemed. I even checked my gas gauge to see if it had gone down like it normally would after a drive. It hadn't. It was like my car hadn't even burned fuel. That's when I started to feel genuinely unsettled. I drive an Audi. That absolutely never happens. I began running through every possible explanation. Did I misread the time when I left? No. I double-checked before heading out. Was my clock broken? Unlikely, since both my car and phone displayed the same time. Had I somehow disassociated? That didn't seem right either. I wasn't feeling stressed or zoned out. But the weirdness did not stop there. As I was sitting in my car trying to make sense of it all, I started to notice some other odd things. The parking lot, which is normally bustling with cars and people, was eerily empty. It wasn't just quiet. It felt wrong. Like I was the only person there, even though I knew my coworkers should have already arrived for their shifts. But where were their cars? Then, my phone started acting up. Apps that normally worked perfectly kept freezing or crashing. At one point, my screen flickered, showing static for just a split second before going back to normal. I shrugged it off at first. Phones glitch all the time, right? But combined with everything else, it felt like part of the same strange puzzle. And here's the part that really gave me chills. When I finally got out of my car and walked into the building, the clock inside read 3:10, the same time I left my house. I stood there staring at it, trying to figure out if my brain was just messing with me, but the receptionist walked by and casually mentioned something about how late the day felt. She wasn't reacting like the clock was wrong. When I checked my phone again, the time had jumped to 3:20, as if it had caught up. At this point, I was so shaken that I couldn't focus on work. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of it. Did I somehow step into a time warp? Did the universe glitch out and fold the distance between my house and work? Or did I slip into some parallel timeline where time worked differently? The strangest thing is, I wasn't scared. I was fascinated. It was like I'd gotten a glimpse behind the curtain of reality and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Even now, days later, I keep looking for a sign that it might happen again. I know there are crazier glitch stories out there. People disappearing and reappearing, entire buildings vanishing, doppelgangers showing up in places they shouldn't be. But this experience made me question everything I knew about time and space. Maybe reality isn't quite as fixed as we think it is. Maybe there are cracks in the system, little moments where the rules don't apply. I don't know what happened that day, but I do know one thing. I'll never look at a normal drive to work the same way again. Hi, Raven, and hi to my best friend. You know who you are if this gets on the podcast. Well, it did, so hello to your best friend as well. I've been listening to the podcast for a couple of months now, ever since my best friend played a few episodes to fall asleep to when we were on holiday together. And I look forward to every new episode as I too like to fall asleep while listening. You have a very nice voice. Thank you. Anyway, this incident happened to me last week, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, as not much of the sort has ever really happened to me. For some context, I live in an English seaside town, and I work in the town center, which is where I was heading when the following happened. First things first, I nearly missed my bus because I had gone into a nearby shop for a drink, and the queue was fairly long, leaving me rushing to the bus stop once I eventually left. I managed to get there with a few minutes to spare as the bus was a bit later than usual. I bought my bus ticket and sat at the back of the bus, exactly where I always sit, back left corner. There was nobody else on the bus, other than the driver, which is important. The bus for my stop into town usually doesn't get very busy until around 5 stops into the journey, so it's always just me and maybe one other person waiting at the terminus every morning. A lot of people tend to get the other buses that stop at this same place. The bus wasn't due to leave for another 2 minutes, so I simply sat and waited. I'm never the type to use my phone while on public transport. I always prefer to listen to music and look out the window. But this time I looked ahead of me at the rest of the bus. Still nobody else. There was a middle-aged man waiting outside for a different bus, but other than him, there was nobody else. After a few moments, the bus started up, and the journey began. I turned my head to look out the window, watching for a few moments as we drove past houses and various shops, until I heard a noise despite my earphones being on noise cancellation mode. It sounded like a cough, so I glanced around, and to my genuine shock, the bus was suddenly packed. All the seats were now taken, and some people were even standing at the front of the bus, holding on to the supports. The bus had not stopped since I got on, and I know that because I take this exact route to work almost every day. I know it like the back of my hand. My heart lurched forward, and I sat frozen for a moment, digging my nails into my palms as I tried to calm myself. The whole experience baffled me. What's even weirder is that when I looked out the window, only for a second, the bus drove past a shop that I'd never seen before, replacing the original Lidl that's always been there. I thought long and hard while I was distracted for that second. It seemed that everybody on that bus was now gone. They had all somehow disappeared, and it was once again just me. A week later, and I'm still wondering what the hell happened. Maybe I somehow managed to enter another universe, a parallel version of my hometown. I've never been a genuine believer in parallel universe-related stories, but now I'm just confused. Why me? Why that specific bus? That specific time? On that specific day? Was it a random occurrence of an important message from the universe? I don't think I'll ever know. I try not to dwell on it too much, but thank you for reading, and if anything like this happens again, I will be submitting an update. Hey Raven, a bit of a trigger warning on this one. This parallel universe and glitch story contains subject matter involving child endangerment and implications of a child's death. So, if anyone is really sensitive to that, I recommend you skip ahead. A few weeks ago, I was at a bar with my husband. We don't normally drink at bars, it's too expensive, and I don't normally feel comfortable drinking outside of my home, as I don't like the risk, as I'm 100% against drinking and driving. You never know if you have to leave sooner than planned due to an emergency. But I wanted to enjoy a little date night with him as we struggle seeing each other due to our busy work schedules. We don't go out much at all without our kids. I wish we did, but you know how tight money can get. One drink down and feeling a little nostalgic, I opened up to him saying, "Do you remember that one night when we went out to that karaoke bar with our friend? And we had so much fun. I guess I just wanted to recreate that by coming here." My husband chuckled and told me, "Oh, the one we went to several times because you insisted that we go?" I was confused. Sure, I was drinking, but I was still engaging in normal conversation, and I could still recollect memories. I asked him what he meant, because I swear we only went once. Just adding some context and backstory here, I remember distinctly that it was fall of 2019. I wore purple and I was feeling really good about myself, having lost just about 30 pounds, the good old-fashioned way. Calorie deficit and exercise. I poorly sang a Panic at the Disco song, met some interesting but friendly people, had something that tasted just like liquid apple pie, sang some more, and remembered how liberated I felt. As I was raised to see drinking alcohol as being one of the worst things you could do to yourself. Of course, if you aren't responsible, it can be. But I know when enough is enough. I was safe and my husband was there with me. It's a core memory. It's also why, fast forward to today, I wanted to go to a bar with him and relax, and maybe talk to some people, hear their stories, and enjoy the little things. Despite only remembering one instance, he insisted that we went several times. But how is that possible? It's not like me, nor likely for me, to have had so much to drink every time that I would not remember. Like I said, I hate being drunk outside of my house, because you never know what could happen if you suddenly have to leave due to an emergency. My husband remains sober, of course, but still, that anxiety remains. Not to mention, hangovers are terrible. Alcohol can really mess you up. Both of my parents were alcoholics, and my mother had to go to the ER more than once to get her stomach pumped. It was terrifying. I understand why the rest of my family tried scaring me away from it. I'm predispositioned for alcohol abuse. It can be a slippery slope, which is again why I do not drink heavy, and I'm careful. As I do not drink myself to oblivion outside my home, how do I not remember going to this karaoke bar multiple times, as my husband claims? This was the moment I began to realize that I must have, at some point, jumped to some different timeline or reality. I doubt myself quite often, but all of these glitch stories now really have made me consider it a real possibility. I have gaps in my memory that I cannot explain, and it can't all be from alcohol. In our guest bedroom, we have a bunch of silly signs we printed out from the internet. We used to host Dungeons and Dragons at our home, and it was another fun way to entertain players. We even have some AI images, Renaissance-themed generated paintings of women holding their noses in disgust. You get it. I generated a few myself. Anyway, I once walked in to find newly printed jokes on the wall that I had never seen before. The thing is, my husband wouldn't have been able to make or print this one in particular, as our printer was misbehaving. On top of the fact that he would have had to have rearranged the others to put his TP meme in that particular spot. The print paper could have ripped and we would have needed more tape. It would have been too much of a hassle to rearrange the bathroom memes. It was very unlikely that anyone did. I also no longer saw a printout of Mr. Rogers did not adequately prepare me for my neighborhood anywhere. We had it on our wall, now we don't. It was a subtle change, but I know I remember how these pictures were arranged. Now, it's slightly different. All that said, from all my adventures in life, it's a miracle that I'm still alive today, unless, what if I didn't survive a few? If there is such a thing as guardian angels protecting us on Earth, mine was pulling out their hair with me growing up. All my life, I've had a tendency to end up accidentally injuring myself. A lot. Millennials will know this reference when I talk about a particular show on Nickelodeon in the late 90s. A show featuring a protagonist with an unusually shaped football head. You know that one cheerful, friendly kid that constantly fell in ditches, ran into things, and ultimately was a walking self-hazard on two legs? Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I have two linked stories that makes me wonder whether I've experienced quantum immortality. The first happened when I was only 2 weeks old. Back in 1992, my grandmother took my mom in. My mother suffered mental illness so crippling that she couldn't maintain a job or live by herself. Mental health care wasn't as well understood as it is today. She had to file for disability and was thankfully granted benefits, so she could help with the bills. My parents were never really together and he was only in the picture off and on. So there we all were in a small 3-bedroom house. It was the 4 of us: my mom, my grandmother, myself, and my older brother. When I was still a newborn at 2 weeks, my grandmother insisted to my mom that she give me baby food, the type you're only supposed to give to infants that are old enough to sit up. That way my hunger would be satisfied, and everyone could sleep through the night. Who knew babies cry at night when they're hungry or wet? This backfired big time, as newborns cannot digest anything but milk straight from the mother or formula. I was very colicky and I cried a lot. Likely because I was in pain as my digestive tract didn't know what to do with pureed peaches. Feeding infants baby food under 6 months can lead to autoimmune disorders, food allergies, and choking. Therefore, the baby can expire from not knowing how to swallow food. What if, in some alternate timeline, I didn't survive this? I know knowledge on proper care for babies was limited back then, but how could they have not known it was way too early, and they were putting my life at risk? My grandmother had 3 children. Did she do this with all 3 of her babies? I can't ask them about it because my mother's gone and my grandmother is in the last stages of dementia. None of my other relatives were sick like how I was growing up. Then again, kids get sick often, but I missed a lot more kindergarten than others. I now know that I have an autoimmune disorder that presents itself as psoriasis, an angry cousin of eczema. A major part of your immune system starts in your gut, which is how I know at least parts of my issues with my immune system started when I was 2 weeks old. If you have an autoimmune disorder, and you don't eat right or get stressed or do anything that can put a strain on your immune system, it just makes it worse. According to my pediatrician, the earliest you can safely offer a baby food is 6 months. 10 years ago, it was 4 months, but they've since revised it. I have 2 kids, and I'm so happy to know now that my autoimmune issues are not genetic. Neither of my kids have any of the health issues I had growing up, and I'm so very relieved they're not going to suffer like I have been. I break out when I get severely depressed or anxious, and it can have a snowball effect. From my teen years to mid-20s, I would get flare-ups so bad that it was like having poison ivy that wouldn't go away. I'd get stared at often, and more than once these open patches of skin would get infected. There have been several other possible times in my life where I could have jumped timelines, but I would end up writing a short novel if I did, and I can share in the comments if anyone's interested. Like I said, my guardian angel was working overtime, like when my 11-year-old self decided to take a walk on I-70, a very busy and dangerous US interstate, and when I cut an active electrical wire with scissors, or when I nearly got struck by lightning under a tree. I owe that angel a huge apology. Another instance, when I was a baby, was when my dad came back around. He and my mother got drunk, and my genius father decided to drive drunk with me at 3 months in the front seat of his car. According to the story, my aunt had to rescue me after he somehow safely made it to his place. Interesting to note here, my aunt doesn't remember. I know she would have if something like that happened. My stepmother told me, and she would have no reason to lie. Again, I can't yell at my dad about it as he's gone too. Either someone is lying, omitting something, or something else happened. Like a quantum immortality event. I'll never truly know. My guardian angel was definitely working overtime when my psoriasis almost killed me last year. Last year, in 2023, I was severely depressed, as we as a family were stressed over certain things we couldn't control, mostly money issues, especially after just having a baby. Postpartum depression hurts like any other deep wound. I have a lot to feel sad about in general, but it's not healthy to get stuck in that kind of mindset. But that day I sulked and caved in. letting the depression sink into my bones. I was unable to do much, let alone move the entire day. Thanks to this depressive episode, my immune system took a dive. Blisters formed on my left leg that I neglected to remember existed, and they became infected. As I was spiraling, I had forgotten to clean the blisters or apply Neosporin. That was my biggest mistake that I came to regret soon after. At first, I thought it was the flu, as I had the classic symptoms. But when I hit a fever of 104, I found myself in the hospital with something called necrotic cellulitis, a fancy term for flesh-eating bacteria on my leg. Fortunately, we caught it early. I was admitted and put on a 3-day steady stream of IV antibiotics. I didn't lose my leg, or worse, develop sepsis, which is commonly fatal. A decent portion of the skin on my leg died, though. That hurt. A lot. It looked like someone lit the back of my leg on fire, and I was at an even higher risk of infection. Nurses were surprised at how calm I was, because it was really serious. It was more serious than I realized. The first night that I was in my room, I swear I could sense someone in there with me. It wasn't a nurse or a doctor either. Whatever or whoever it was woke me up. I didn't see anything, but I knew they were there. My guess was a relative long since passed on. Once or twice, I felt someone tugging on my shirt or blanket, just as if to make sure that I knew they were there. It was comforting. Not once did I ever feel isolated or alone in my hospital room. It could be chalked up to a hallucination, or another patient saying something, but something didn't completely add up. It didn't bother me. Eventually I recovered, and I have one gnarly scar on my leg to show for it. It could have been worse. I shared my story with someone who told me they knew another person who had developed the same infection around the same time I did. That person didn't make it, but I did. I guess I've become numb to things like this happening to me, and I've come to peace knowing this will likely be how I die one day. Honestly, I'd rather go from infection than dementia, which is unfortunately a real possibility for me. Hopefully none of that will come to pass anytime soon. Give me 30 more years and I'll be happy. If any of these events did make me shift realities, I'm really hoping that the one I'm in, or could jump into, will be a brighter one. I'm tired of accidentally flirting with death, tripping over manholes, breaking toes, you name it. Can I slip into a universe where I win the lottery? It doesn't hurt to dream. Thanks for reading my long-winded thoughts, Raven. Take care, and stay safe. I think I just had my first glitch. The first noticeable one, at least. It's extremely small compared to some of the other stories that are read here, but to me, it still feels like something. I have a lot of stray cats around my condo complex. Side note for the animal lovers, they're very well taken care of by the residents of the complex. And although there are a lot of cats running around, I'm very familiar with what they all look like. The only black cat that lives here likes to hang out in my backyard. This morning he decided to use my flower bed as his bathroom, so I opened the door to shoo him away, because my dog will eat it. When I did that, he turned around and ran straight back to the bushes. I then looked at the spot where he'd gone to the bathroom and glanced over at my neighbor's patio. When I did, I saw a black cat sitting there looking at me. Like I said, we only have the one black cat here in the complex, and I had just seen him run the other way into the bushes. There's no way that cat could have run into the bushes and then come all the way back out and ran to my neighbor's patio in the 15 seconds this all took place without me seeing him. Is it possible there are just two black cats? Of course, but this feels more like a glitch to me. Hi, Raven. I've had many glitches in the past, but this recent one threw me off. I can't stop thinking about it. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible without going into too much details. There's a local girl that lives near me. I don't know her, but know her enough to say hi, and we both got each other on Facebook. Anyway, I see her posting family holiday pictures of her and her partner and their 3 children. A girl around 13 years, a boy around 10 years, and another boy around 6. I like to show love and support to anyone's pictures on socials because it's just a nice thing to do, I suppose. I've giggled to myself at how her 2 boys look like carbon copies of each other, except for the fact that there is about 4 years between them. Fast forward around 2 years, myself and my husband are chatting to a woman that has been a friend of ours for the past 3 years, as she comes into our hotel bar a lot. Well, this woman happens to be the grandmother of these children that I've just mentioned. It randomly came up in a conversation one day that I think her 2 grandsons are carbon copies of each other. Our friend looked at me and went white as a sheet and asked me what I meant. I was a little taken aback and explained that I always see the photos of her 3 grandchildren as I have her daughter-in-law on Facebook, and the 2 boys look so much alike. I couldn't understand why she looked so taken aback. She went on to ask me to explain exactly what I was looking at, and how old I thought these boys were. So I explained, and then I thought it would be easier to just pull up the photos on Facebook and show her what I meant. What happened next absolutely floored me and made me feel so lightheaded, and just a general feeling of disorientation. I went ahead and pulled the pics up, yet now I could only see 2 kids on this girl's photos. The girl and the youngest boy were there in all of them. However, the older boy, who I previously assumed was around 10, was absolutely nowhere to be seen. Not in one single photo. Even the photos and albums I had already liked. He was nowhere. My head was spinning. Our friend, white as a ghost, explained to us that her daughter-in-law and son had indeed had a son around 10 years ago, but he had passed away shortly after birth. So, what I had been seeing was what? Him at the age he should be now? Why was he suddenly nowhere to be seen in any of the photos? This absolutely blew my mind, and will do so for as long as I live. We were out running errands. We've had this car for over a year. It's a 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander. Anyway, we use the backup camera all the time. He put the car in reverse to back up. We have a soccer magnet to the left of the license plate. Usually you might get a tiny glimpse of the magnet and a little bit of the frame from the license plate holder. However, now almost the full magnet is visible as well as a large part of the frame. My husband and I looked at the screen, looked at each other, and then back to the screen. My first thought was that somehow the camera had been hit and was now showing a different angle. My husband parked again, got out of the car, and took a photo of the camera. The full camera apparatus had moved. Instead of being aligned with the license plate and near the button to open the back hatch, it was now 2 or 3 inches to the side. Total glitch. Even my teenage son who drives was a little baffled, even though he thinks that glitches are just in your head. It was wild. So that my friends, was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection. The last glitch in the Matrix collection, and I believe, unless my schedule says otherwise, which I don't think it does, the final video of 2024. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, the 31st. And with that, yeah, we just hit a new year. It's going to be crazy. We haven't just yet, you know what I mean? We're about to hit a new year, that's what I meant to say. It's just crazy. 2024 flew by, and 2025 is here already, and I don't know how we got from my week that I had COVID in August to the end of the year this quickly, because so many plans I had didn't fall apart necessarily, but kind of just like struggled to be maintained near this last like 3 months of the year, 4 months really, last third of the year. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I'm not saying I had like a bad time in this last quarter. I should say last third of the year. Just not everything came to fruition like I wanted. But hey, I finished a book, so that's a big deal, right? Did do a ton of content. Did put out a book. Or finish a book. Not quite put it out yet. That happens in January. But yeah. Hopefully you all had a good 2024. Even if you didn't have a good year this year, remember that tomorrow the birds will sing. Next year, we can do our best to make it the best year possible. Regardless of any issues we face, regardless of any adversity that attempts to stand in our way, we shall do our best with the time we have, and we will try to make 2025 a strong year. I think we can do it. I'm going to try to as well. And remember, if you struggle, again, that too shall pass. We'll be okay, guys. Chat, we're going to make it. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed the videos. The videos? No, well, yeah, screw it. Let's say that. Hopefully you all enjoyed the videos of 2024. The collections of stories I did. I did a lot of them. I'm not going to go count how many I did, because that would be way too long of a process. Okay, I'm back, and I lied to you. That was not too long of a process. I just used my basically Excel calendar that I've created, counted how many videos there were each month that were new content, and then did a equals sum with all those cells. And I think you're going to be surprised. This year, in 2024, I put out, and this is just the non-compilation or non-like sleep videos. This is just the new videos that had new stories only. I put out 183 videos this year. That is crazy. That is mathematically almost one every other day. 365 days, 183 videos, that's half. So that's almost a video every other day this year of new content. That's not including compilations or sleep videos. So that is, I do this too much. I should quit, huh? Let me know if I should quit in the comments below. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please do hit that like button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing. If you want to join Patreon or memberships, get early access to content like this, that'd be awesome. Super thanks as well. Those are just tips to the channel. Check out my upcoming psychological thriller novel coming out in January on the 10th. Pre-order available on Amazon. Still don't have the physical ones. Still waiting on those. They can be here anytime between now and the 7th. That's just how Amazon does things, unfortunately. So, yeah. You can also listen on Spotify, Pandora, anywhere else you want to listen. So, the other thing we do on Mondays, or glitch videos, is the word of the week. 2 weeks ago, you all did respond, or did comment with the word of the week that I gave you. It was an easy one. Let me go look at my list really quick. 2 weeks ago was irritating, and a lot of you commented. So on the screen right now, and several minutes prior to now, is a collection of all the comments I got that used 2 weeks ago the word of the week. Last week was a compilation. It was the best of 2024, so it didn't have a word of the week, unfortunately. So you had 2 weeks to comment. If you did, you should be on the screen. If you didn't, you're not on the screen. If you did and you're not on the screen, I'm sorry. I missed some of them. I miss some of them sometimes. It's just, I suck at this. I'm terrible and I'm awful and logistics are horrible. and I don't know how to screenshot things properly or something. I don't know. Think of an excuse that I would give you for that and just use it. So a huge thank you to everybody who commented on that word of the week. Y'all are amazing. Didn't have to, and you did anyway. So, yeah. Moving on to this week's word of the week. This week, the word of the week is insouciance. And I'm sorry, but I hit the pronounce button on Merriam-Webster, and there's two of them. One that says insouciance, and the other one is apparently in French, because it says insouciance. And it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Just go look up insouciance on Merriam-Webster. Click the insouciance button, which is the one on the right. It made me laugh, I'm sorry. Anyways, insouciance. Insouciance is an interesting word. It actually means lighthearted, unconcerned, or just showing a casual lack of concern or indifference. Basically is being apathetic. So use insouciance in a sentence, and I will put it on the screen next week for the glitch, the first glitch of the year. So, yeah. All that said, friends, hope you're having a beautiful day. Hope I see you again here very soon. But until then, remember that you are loved, that you are valid, that you are important. You're the best you that you can be. Do not forget that, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.